our goal is to help law firms today get started keeping their teams connected so that they can, make it through the next several months as we all work our way through, leaning forward into technology, helping us make it to the other side of some of the challenges that we're all facing, moving people to work from home.
Today on LawNext, a deep dive into Microsoft Teams and how legal professionals are using it or can be using it to keep their practices going in this new era of working from home. This is Bob Ambrogi, and you're listening to LawNext, the podcast that features the innovators and entrepreneurs who are driving what's next in law. And today, I am joined by two guests. First off, let me introduce Mike Ammerlaan, who's Director of Microsoft 365 Ecosystem Marketing. Mike, how are you today?
Doing great. I work on Microsoft 365 Ecosystem Marketing. So that really means, all the different applications that, integrate with, other applications like Teams or like Outlook or like SharePoint, work with a number of different partners, a number of different experiences that make those core, Office applications that much better. And so, a number of them across a number of different industries as well.
That's great. And we don't say Office 365 anymore, right?
Yes, we do say Microsoft 365. We just announced, Microsoft 365 for, consumers. So, even if you're using it at home, it's Microsoft 365.
Yeah, great. And also joining me today is Carol and Grow, who's the co-owner and vice president of marketing and sales at Law Toolbox, a deadline management software that tightly integrates with Microsoft 365. Carol, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me here. And yes, I head up our marketing and sales team, and am excited to be here with Mike and with you talking about how law firms can stay connected and navigate through this world of COVID and be connected with their teams via Microsoft Teams.
We'll get to today's interview in just a moment. But first, let's hear from the sponsors who generously support LawNext. And now, on to this week's interview. Mike, I just wondered if I could start with you. I mean, this, just from a sort of a high level view before we drill down into some of the legal industry specifics, but this must be a pretty crazy time over the last few weeks for you. But I would imagine in a lot of ways, one that you feel like, or you as a company feel like you've been building towards in some ways. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. I mean, it's for example, the 3-year anniversary of Microsoft Teams as a product that you can go acquire and sort of use to, bring your teams together. But, certainly, with remote work and sort of the broader situation, like there's been, for example, in the past month, within Italy, there's a 775% increase in sort of overall calling and monthly meeting users. For Microsoft Teams itself, there's a significant spike. We now have over 44 million daily users who are now using Teams for remote work, both calling, but then also organizing content, doing chats, those kinds of things. And so, the amount of remote work is growing. I mean, I've done some remote work, but, of course, now and many of us are now living it in the sense of, okay, we're, sprucing up our home offices and connecting through Microsoft Teams.
Yeah. And you work with the legal industry specifically?
Yeah, well,
I work across verticals.
I work across verticals. I mean, I've worked with, the legal industry more specifically. Actually, at Microsoft, I've worked there for over 20 years, worked on SharePoint. And so, for example, for Microsoft's own internal corporate, law, we've been doing a number of things with SharePoint, a lot of custom solutions that build on top of that for managing matters and the content associated with matters. Been to, ILTACon and those kinds of conferences and the like. And so, I do a number of different industries and work across them, but, legal is one where, so document centric that, it's always so interesting to see all the kinds of things that are happening to, really build on top of, core products like SharePoint and Teams and Word for that matter.
Yeah. My listeners are going to be mostly in the legal world. And I think a lot of them are going to be pretty familiar with your products, but there are going to be some who aren't. So maybe you can just give me kind of an overview of what is Microsoft Teams?
Yeah, so Microsoft Teams, the idea is that it's really this hub where teams come together to go work on different projects. And so, yeah, it starts with this idea of course, there's things like chat, and there's things like being able to have meetings and calls, and those are really important for connecting people. Of course, for a lot of the remote work that's happening now, you see that more broadly. But Microsoft Teams also has this philosophy of, it's a bit more of a Teams workspace. So, in addition to those chat, that serves as the background and the fundamental, how people come together and collaborate. But then you can also pull in different types of documents, and you can pull in different types of applications, all into one space, so that as you're working on a matter, for example, all of the information that you have is all in one place, kind of close at hand and connected. Because we're so often now more in teams, people are in twice as many teams as they were 5 to 10 years ago. It's important that as you go between all of the different virtual teams you're on, the different matters that you might be on, the different teams that you might be on, that you have to spend less time collecting that information. So Teams really is this application that brings a lot of those different types of workloads, if you will, into one place. The idea is you create a team, as your team actually does more of the communication within that chat channel, you get this benefit for, having all those kinds of things in one place. So chat, calls, but also a hub that brings together a number of different applications as well.
Yeah, so it's a lot more than just, there's a lot, everybody just seems to be talking about Zoom these days. And obviously Teams has a video conferencing component to it, but what you're describing is something much more extensive than that.
Yeah. That, so for example, being able to arrange a set of tasks, where, of course, being able to manage, units of work and tasks and sort of move them through a workflow, inside of your chat application, as you're sort of talking with your colleagues, you can incorporate those tasks straight into your conversations. And so you can say, hey, did you follow up on that research that we're looking for last week? Here's the task. You can embed that straight inside of your chat application inside of Teams, so that information's always close at hand. And as that issue gets resolved, then it gets updated. And so there's this idea that because communication and collaboration is so important to what we're all doing in so many of these different teams, that if you can kind of weave those applications throughout, the different conversations you're having, it becomes a lot easier to stay organized and to stay focused. And so for that reason, Teams was designed a bit more with this philosophy of, you do have, conversations and calls and audio and video, and those are important. But then, you can complement that with all of the other, applications that are unique to your team, that you want to pull together, like, Law Toolbox as well.
Yeah. Well, so since you mentioned Law Toolbox, let's bring in Carolyn. And Carolyn, Law Toolbox integrates obviously with Microsoft 365 and with Teams. Can you talk a little bit more about that? How does your product, which is separate and distinct from Microsoft, but integrates with it, how does it work with Teams and with Office with Microsoft 365? I'm going to keep calling it Office 365 for a while.
Sure. So Law Toolbox really got our start in the area of rules-based calendaring. So when a lawyer or a paralegal has a case set for trial in LA County Superior Court, for example, they can select a rule set and enter the date of the trial, for example, and our system will automatically generate the 72 deadlines in that instance and put them into everybody's Outlook calendar. So we started out as a Office 365 integration in Outlook. And then, and that actually began in 2013. And fast forward to 2016, when Office 365 Groups, which is the platform that Teams sits on top of, came into play, we made a strategic decision that bringing our product into the applications where attorneys and paralegals spend their day, right into their Outlook inbox, was the right thing to do, and to leverage Office 365 Groups to go and create those matters. And so then fast forward a little bit further, Microsoft is preparing to launch Microsoft Teams. And we sat down with the team, and we were encouraged to look ahead and be first to go and develop a program to basically extend our groups-based product, which is what Teams sits on top of. A group is something that is, a distribution list that creates a SharePoint site, a OneNote, a central calendar, and extend that into Teams. So we actually launched our Teams application. We started building to it before Teams was launched, and we have been helping law firms over the last 3 years learn how to use Microsoft Teams to do matter management and to do it inside of a team of, with multiple matters in a team where you're managing a lot of calendaring and documents and contacts, or using a team for each individual matter. So depending on the organization or department, people do it different ways. So that's a little bit about the background of how we got involved with Teams. We certainly are.
So the sum of the parts. I mean, you've taken.
Yeah.
I mean, what you're talking about. I mean, your deadline management tool through this integration becomes something. What's the saying? The sum is greater than the parts. Whatever that's not the saying, but whatever it is, that you're actually creating, as you say, a matter management tool through a combination of your product and the Teams integration.
Exactly. So Teams in and of itself is a place to collaborate with chat. And when you send a chat message, kind of like an email, you can attach something to it. The difference is in an email, it's out there and not organized. When you do it inside of a team, for example, within a matter, whatever you attach gets automatically saved to that location. And then what Law Toolbox does to extend Teams is we create this concept of a matter management system for lawyers and the ability to automate the calendaring component with the rules-based component, as well as all of the reporting that comes with your cases and your information and, what's coming up and analytics and those types of things.
Yeah. So over the last couple of weeks, as we've gotten deeper into this crisis, Carolyn, what are you hearing? What are you hearing from your customers? What are you seeing in the legal community in terms of what their needs are for technology, how they're responding to this?
Well, a lot of people are talking about this idea that people are, they're transforming their organizations in a matter of weeks that would otherwise take a matter of years. And, we see a lot of people nervous about how they can, effectively keep their business running and be able to do that when they're sending their people to go work from home, how they're going to professionally take care and stay close with their clients while they're protecting their information. So we hunkered down several weeks ago and made a decision internally that, this was the right time to really re-envision what we do to help, to do our part to help the legal industry. And so we've been doing what we can to make Teams easy, the application Teams easy for the application called Microsoft Teams and our matter management system potentially as well, or just Microsoft Teams, to make it basically offer a next day program to help law firms start connecting, using something that they potentially have already paid for because they potentially have Office 365, and showing them how to open it up, create their first team, one for their law firm to manage maybe HR and COVID updates, and then another team for a practice group to start managing their morning meetings and office hours and staying connected so they feel as though they're as connected, although they're in different offices, they're seeing each other, they're talking throughout the day, and they're chatting and sharing documents, in a way where they're keeping their attorney-client privilege intact, because all of this is happening under the umbrella of the Microsoft enterprise grade security platform.
Right. Mike, is Microsoft seeing seeing kind of a surge to the platform, or seeing a lot of interest in the platform, and how are you responding or assisting with that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think with so many people now working from home, doing remote work in some forms, it's important to kind of, retain this culture that you might have sort of inside the office and those kinds of things. And so, we're actually adapting some of the features and capabilities of Microsoft Teams. So one of the ones that we actually have, it sounds like a small thing, but it's this idea that we're looking to introduce a button that allows you to kind of signify that you're raising your hand, so that when you're in a meeting with 40 people in it, sometimes it can actually just be technically hard to kind of interject into someone without interrupting them or stopping their audio flow or those kinds of things. So just having something as simple as a raise hand capability, so that when you're in those broader meetings, it replicates the nonverbal cues of somebody kind of maybe raising their hand physically. So things like that. That's a new capability. I think obviously, for remote work, we want to try to help teams be flexible towards replicating the experiences that are relevant to them. So for example, adding a whiteboard application into your team spaces so that you have now a place for people to brainstorm, or take notes, or maybe introduce quick polling of your team so that you can say, okay, hey, it's Friday, everybody. How are you feeling? Is anything that's blocking you, those kinds of things. And so applications that you can integrate with Microsoft Teams can also really help with sort of replicating some of the remote the local work, I guess, cues and capabilities that you might find otherwise now no longer present. So there's a lot of that we're sort of working with a number of partners who are doing some really great stuff. I guess the other thing that's been really interesting to see is that we had this application called Power Apps, which allows you to go build your own custom applications. You don't need to be a developer and those kinds of things. And so, for customers who now need to go replicate a process, if you're in healthcare and maybe you need to do more, for example, logistical tracking of things, being able, or you need to go, communicate crisis information to the rest of your company. We're seeing a lot of, usage of people creating their own applications, putting them together, maybe creating a simple form or two, taking in inputs, kicking off a workflow and those kinds of things. And so, even in the legal industry, if there's, particular workflows that might have been, handled in person in the office, so to speak, there's a capability to kind of really design the workflow to fit what you're trying to do, integrate it inside of Microsoft Teams so that it's there and it's available and it's, where it needs to be with your team. But really sort of all those kinds of things together to kind of really customize the workspace to make it super tailored for how your team works and what you're trying to do. And, maybe how matters, for example, might be sort of working, or how you might, want to go do things.
That's really interesting. Is that, I mean, are you, some of the new features that you were just talking about, is this new climate, this new environment that we're all in, causing you to kind of rethink your development roadmap for this product? I mean, are there features that maybe had been on the back burner that suddenly you're accelerating, and others that you're saying, well, maybe this isn't as important right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think that first, there's been just such an increase in the scale. There's a lot of work to be done just to kind of make sure that we can support those kinds of spikes in usage and those kinds of things. And it's kind of a funny testament to the cloud, I guess, generally, in the sense of it's great that we have this kind of broader cloud in the sense that there's more flexibility to kind of allocate more assets and do those kinds of things. But there is a lot of work still, nevertheless, to keep up with the scale of all the increase in remote work that we're doing. So definitely there's a surge on that front. But then I do think that there's a set of capabilities that we are prioritizing to kind of focus on remote work. One of them that's kind of interesting is we have this capability for real-time noise suppression that we're sort of working to bring out, which if you're working from home, if there's a vacuum in the background, if somebody's opening up a cabinet, as someone was doing about 3 minutes ago, it can actually work to kind of suppress. It's kind of like noise cancellation, I guess, to kind of suppress some of those background noises that ordinarily you might not hear in your isolated office at work, but in a home environment. So there's a lot of that kind of work. And then, of course, we're always working with partners like Law Toolbox, seeing more partners come in who want to connect with where people are getting their work done, which is in a lot of cases in Word or in Teams or in other applications too.
Yeah. Carolyn, if for people who are listening to this now who may not be using Teams right now, what is there a right kind of law firm, a right size of law firm that's best for using this, and how would they get started?
So I would say that before the COVID outbreak, we were seeing organizations that were, 10 people and larger, as well as many of the corporate legal departments that were actively trying to figure out how to manage, this scenario where you've got all this data and all these emails and nobody can keep track of it. And really transforming into this new world where we, provide contextual ways to manage your information. For an attorney, that would be, managing your matters. You want to have your documents and your conversations and your notes and your tasks related to that matter. So I would say that with with everything going on and the dramatic need to allow people to be mobile and people to collaborate, I think what we're noticing is that all size organizations are looking at using applications like Teams to enable their people to just be working on the same screen and just share screens, start conversations and chat. And so the smaller the organization, we notice that they're tending to use, if as a law firm that's smaller, they're going to be using their Teams experience to collaborate with co-counsel, to obviously work with their folks within their own organization, and we're seeing them do a lot more communicating with their clients using Teams, sending team meetings, sharing a file within their Teams environment. They just go find, they create a folder that's called client documents, and then they can right click, hit share, type in that that person's email address and share it to a Gmail account. We're sort of seeing that pretty much all legal organizations are tending toward getting started using Office 365 if they don't have it, or if they already have it, which many do. They're just opening up Teams and figuring out how to do it.
We'll get back to my interview in just a moment, but first, let's take a break to hear from the sponsors who generously support LawNext. And now, let's continue this week's interview. A lot of firms right now are probably concerned about the financial impact that this will have on them. What does it cost a firm to get started? And are there any particular incentives or special offers right now for firms that would help them if they do have concerns about their sort of their financial position right now?
For Office 365 specifically, and this is for Office, the applications, there is a 6-month trial. So of Office 365 E1 trial, like in this situation, now you can sort of use these applications, including Teams, for 6 months, for free to try it out, to work with your colleagues and the like, and get started. So there's that side of it.
And E1 is the totally cloud-based Office application.
Yes,
not the desktop installs.
That's right. Web-based applications, Microsoft Teams, all, of course, the enterprise grade, compliance and security.
Yep.
But yeah, all the web applications. And then, on the Law Toolbox side, Carolyn.
Sure. So on the Law Toolbox side of the house, what we're doing is making it easy for any size law firm and corporate legal department, whether it's one of our current clients or just somebody that wants to understand how to use Teams. We really transform from a one-to-one type help to more of a one-to-many. And we have daily webinars that we offer that eliminate all of the cost or much of the cost related to getting started using Teams, because we provide, step by step with a 10 a.m. here's how to onboard the next day and upload your documents to one central team. And your end users can join that as they start working from home. So you don't have to teach them how to use chat and all these different items. And then a second session each day at 11 a.m. Central, where people can learn how to set up teams, create your first channel, create a private channel, and share documents. And then the third is all about matter management. And we do that every day at 1, where we cover a different topic each day. Document, how to use your document management, how to manage documents within Teams. We have a whole DMS tutorial on that, as well as how to manage calendars, how to create a meeting with your client, and all of the basics. And so that eliminates a lot of the challenge of getting on board. And because they're available every day, people are utilizing those fairly regularly. And we're seeing a huge demand for that. And so we'll continue doing that as long as this epidemic continues. From a cost standpoint, we're getting those law firms, we're making them aware of the Microsoft 6-month free access to the E1 license. So we're getting them connected on that. We have partners that can help them as well, that are offering similar type scenarios where they, waive some of the costs if they do have questions about security or configuring. And then from a Law Toolbox cost standpoint, our product is currently available through the Microsoft Marketplace. And we also have the ability to provide, for law firms that need it, 3 months free use of Law Toolbox. So our goal is to help law firms today get started keeping their teams connected so that they can, make it through the next several months as we all work our way through, leaning forward into technology, helping us make it to the other side of some of the challenges that we're all facing, moving people to work from home.
I'm cognizant of the fact that we're running low on time, and I've been asking you both lots of questions, but I wondered if I could just ask you if there's any points that you wanted to bring up about this that we haven't talked about. Mike, let me start with you.
Yeah, I think that for so many of us, including myself, there's a lot of experimentation that we all have to do now to kind of make sure that we adapt, both in terms of our work responsibilities and also sort of how we personally adapt to working remotely more frequently. And so I know as a team we've been sort of working on virtual meetups just to kind of talk about things that are a little bit outside of work, but to kind of retain that connection. And a lot of the the social things about, even, for me personally, like driving, not now that I'm not driving to work anymore, like I kind of miss that kind of disconnection time that you have. And so,
Yeah.
For everyone who's kind of, in legal, it's the same thing in the sense of, we're all sort of going through that process of kind of finding what works for you too. And so you're trying to leave time for that, or teams leave time for that as well. And sort of, we're sort of working to kind of see what happens and what comes up from that as sort of capabilities and features that we should build in, or that, we can sort of do more to kind of say, okay, there's applications that help with that inside of Microsoft Teams as well. But yeah, it's really kind of a learning experience writ large.
Yeah. Carolyn, how about you? What else should we have talked about that we haven't talked about here? Other points you'd like to make?
Well, I'd love to share with you all that we are going to be demonstrating and showing the listeners here today a version of what we're talking about here with Microsoft Teams, where you can tune in and see the three of us on a Teams meeting, where we'll be doing a little bit of whiteboarding and screen sharing and turning on our video cams. We'll take a quick peek at what does a morning meeting look like in Teams, where everybody is pulled in and or joins late, and how we could potentially use office hours in Microsoft Teams, as well as how do organizations manage matters. We'll just take a quick sneak peek at some of that, and so we hope you'll check that out as well.
And where are we going to put that? Are we going to put that up on your website, or?
I think we're going to link it to your podcast and
Okay.
put it up on our website.
Perfect. Okay. All right. Well, Mike and Carolyn, thank you very much for taking the time to be with me on LawNext today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah. And stay safe and stay healthy. And
That's
Stay
right.
home. Yeah.
okay.
Stay home, wash your hands.
Wash your hands, all that stuff. Listen to your motor. All right. All right. Thank you very much. That does it for today's show on LawNext. Thanks, as usual, to Ben Ambrogi for his production and editing work on the show. This is Bob Ambrogi. See you next time.